She learned the cold before she learned kindness. Every morning began the same way, with her knees pressed into frozen stone and her breath turning white in the dark. Dawn had not fully arrived when Mara was already scrubbing the courtyard floor, her fingers cracked and bleeding, the cloth in her hand stiff with ice. Her dress hung off her body in loose, torn layers, fabric so thin it offered no defense against winter. The pain was constant now, not sharp enough to scream, not dull enough to ignore. Just enough to remind her she existed only to endure. She was not allowed shoes. Her stepmother said shoes were for people who walked freely, not for girls who crawled. Mara did not remember when she stopped asking why. The town woke around her without seeing her. Merchants opened shutters, children ran past laughing, boots splashed dirty water onto her hands, and no one slowed down. They had learned the rule early: look away, stay quiet, survive. Under vampire rule, mercy was dangerous. Caring too loudly could get you noticed, and being noticed was worse than pain. Mara understood this even if she could not explain it. She kept her head down, her eyes fixed on the stone, counting cracks, counting breaths, counting the hours until night returned, and she was allowed to sleep on the kitchen floor. Her stepmother watched from the doorway, wrapped in fur, warm and clean. Elira never shouted without reason. Her cruelty was calm, deliberate, measured like a punishment written into law. If Mara scrubbed too slowly, Elira added another task. If she finished too fast, Elira accused her of stealing time and doubled the work. Hunger was not a mistake. It was a method. So was isolation. So were the rules that changed daily just to remind Mara she had no control. Elira did not beat her often. Bruises healed. Broken habits did not. The real damage came from the small things: meals eaten slowly in front of her, laughter cut short when Mara entered a room, silence used like a blade. Sometimes the punishments felt wrong, even by the town's standards. Once Mara dropped a cup and Elira made her kneel outside in the snow for an entire night. Another time, a neighbor offered Mara bread and Elira locked her in the cellar for 3 days without water. These were not reactions. They were executions carried out in slow motion. The town noticed but said nothing. Whispers followed Mara like smoke. Poor girl, bad luck, wrong blood. No one asked what that meant. No one wanted the answer. At night, Mara dreamed of nothing. Not freedom, not escape, just quiet. Her body learned to rest without hope. Hope hurt too much when it failed. She did not know she was being watched. She did not know that every loss, every humiliation, every moment she disappeared into the background was being measured by unseen eyes. She thought her life was small because it had to be. She did not know it was small because someone made it that way. The general store was the worst place. It was where the town gathered, where voices carried, where shame could be shared like entertainment. Elira sent her there on purpose. Mara would stand at the counter, coins counted twice, hands shaking, while the shopkeeper inspected her like spoiled goods. Sometimes Elira followed, smiling, correcting Mara loudly, listing her failures as if reading from a script. People watched. Some smirked. Some looked away. No one intervened. That was the rule. Survival first. That morning, Elira pushed her harder than usual. Mara was sent to the store alone, barefoot, wrists raw from carrying buckets too heavy for her frame. The bell rang as she entered. The room fell quiet. The shopkeeper sneered. "Back again," he said. Elira's voice followed from behind, smooth and sharp. "Make sure she pays in full. She has a habit of forgetting her place." Laughter rippled through the room. Mara felt her face burn. She reached for the counter to steady herself. Then the air changed. It was subtle, no sound, no announcement, just a pressure like the room had taken a breath and held it. The laughter died first, then the whispers. Boots stopped moving. Even Elira went still. A man stood near the entrance, cloaked in black, untouched by the light spilling through the window. He had not been there a moment ago. No one had seen him enter. His presence bent the space around him, calm and terrifying all at once. He did not look at Elira. He did not look at the shopkeeper. His gaze settled on Mara, not with pity, not with anger, but with something far worse: recognition. And in that moment, the life she thought was meaningless became very dangerous. Mara didn't realize she'd stopped breathing until her lungs burned. The man at the doorway didn't move like the others. He didn't fidget, didn't blink in that jumpy human way. He simply stood there, calm as midnight, as if time belonged to him and everyone else was renting it by the second. The shopkeeper's sneer collapsed into a tight, polite grimace. A woman near the flour sacks crossed herself. Alira's hand, the one that loved to slap and point and count faults, froze midair like someone had paused her in place. Mara's cheek still stung from the humiliation, flour dust stuck in the corner of her mouth, but the sting didn't matter anymore because the air itself felt different, heavier, like the room had just learned fear. The stranger's coat was black, not rich black like velvet, but deep black like a door at the end of a tunnel. His hair was dark, neat, and too still. His eyes weren't red like the village stories said. They were gray, clean, and flat like steel. He looked at Mara once properly, as if he'd been searching for her for years and had finally found the right face. "Stand up," he said, voice low, almost bored. Mara's knees trembled. She tried anyway. The chain at her ankle clinked against the floorboard. The sound made Alira's lips curl, pleased, like the chain was a joke she'd paid for. The stranger's gaze dropped to the chain, then lifted back to Alira. He didn't ask permission. He didn't raise his voice. He just said, "Remove it." Alira swallowed, then forced a laugh that sounded fake even to her. "Sir, this girl belongs. Remove it," he repeated, and the second time the words landed like a verdict. The shopkeeper finally found his courage and tried to puff himself up. "This is a market. You can't." The stranger's head tilted slightly. Not a threat, not even a glare, just a small, curious movement. The shopkeeper's eyes went wide, then watery, like he'd suddenly remembered every sin he'd ever committed. He clutched his throat, coughing, and dropped his eyes to the floor. The stranger turned back to Mara and held out a coin, black metal with a crest stamped into it, an eye inside a crown. "Come," he said. Now, Mara didn't reach for the coin. Her fingers wouldn't obey. Her whole body was screaming that this was danger with a pretty face. But then she saw Alira's expression. Not anger. Not the usual hungry cruelty. Relief, sharp and ugly, mixed with fear. Like someone's heavy task had finally ended and she was glad to put it down. That made Mara's stomach twist. Alira pulled a key from her bodice with shaking fingers, knelt in the dirt like she'd been trained to kneel, and unlocked the chain. The metal fell away. Mara's ankle was raw, ringed in purple and red. The stranger didn't apologize. He didn't pity her. He looked at the wound like it was evidence. Like it confirmed something he already knew. "Walk," he said, and his hand hovered near her elbow, not touching, just there, ready. Mara stepped forward. The villagers parted like a tide. Nobody met her eyes, nobody spoke. Not one person said sorry. That hurt more than the chain. As Mara passed Alira, she caught the tiniest whisper from her stepmother, a hiss through clenched teeth. "Good, finally." Mara stopped. "What did you say?" Alira's face snapped back into its usual mask. "Nothing," she spat. "Go, you're not worth the bread you eat." The stranger didn't react to the insult. He simply said, "If anyone blocks her path, they will lose that path forever." It wasn't drama. It was law. Outside, a carriage waited. Not the rickety cart Alira used, not the town coach. This one was long, black, with windows so dark they looked like oil. Horses stood perfectly still, as if they were carved. The driver wore gloves and didn't look at Mara. The stranger opened the carriage door himself. "Get in," he said. Mara hesitated, then looked back at the store, at the people, at the life that had been chewing her down to bone. She thought of the cold mornings, scrubbing floors on her knees until her skin split. She thought of Alira measuring her hunger like it was a crime. She thought of the way the town watched and did nothing. She stepped into the carriage as if stepping into a coffin. The inside smelled of cedar and cold stone. The seat was soft, but it didn't feel comforting. Comfort wasn't safe. The door shut without a slam. It sealed, heavy and final. Through the tinted window she saw the store shrink, the town shrink, Alira standing at the doorway like a statue. Then the carriage moved. Mara gripped the edge of the seat until her fingers ached. "Who are you?" she asked, voice thin. The stranger sat opposite her, posture perfect, hands resting as if he was made for thrones. "You know who I am," he said. Mara's mouth went dry. "No," she lied. "I don't." The stranger's gaze stayed steady. "The king," he said, like it was a dull title he'd been forced to wear. Mara's heart slammed. Vampire king. The stories told in whispers. The one who ruled the night and let villages rot in daylight because it kept them obedient. The one who taxed bread and blood. The one who never came in person. "Why are you here?" Mara forced out. "Why now?" The king's eyes flicked to her hands. Her knuckles were split, her nails broken. He watched the way she held her wrists close to her body like she was bracing for a hit. "Because you were about to be noticed," he said, "and you cannot be noticed." Mara stared. "That makes no sense." "It will," he replied, then softer in a tone that made her skin prickle. "You've been kept small on purpose." Mara laughed once, sharp, bitter. "Alira hates me, that's all." The king's mouth didn't move, but something like amusement touched his eyes. "Alira was paid to hate you," he said. Mara's blood turned cold. "Paid? To break you," he continued, calm as a funeral. "To keep you quiet, to keep you forgettable." Mara leaned forward. "You're lying." "I do not lie when the stakes are life," he said. Then he looked past her through the window as if he could see the entire forest and every shadow inside it. "They've been watching you," he added. "For years." Mara's throat tightened. "Who are they?" The king didn't answer. The carriage rolled on, wheels whispering over the road. Forests replaced fields. The sky grew pale, and yet the air around the king stayed cool, untouched by the morning. Mara glanced at him again and saw something that unsettled her more than fangs would have. Not hunger, not lust, recognition, like he'd found a missing piece and didn't like what it meant. "Am I safe?" Mara asked. The king's eyes returned to her. "Safer," he corrected, "not safe." Mara's fingers dug into the seat. "So this isn't rescue." The king's gaze held hers, steady and honest in a cruel way. "No," he said, "this is hiding." The word hit her like a slap. Hiding meant danger was real. Hiding meant the world had teeth. The carriage turned up a hill and the manor appeared through the trees. It rose out of the forest like a black tooth, walls high, windows narrow, stones so dark it drank light. Iron gates opened without anyone touching them. No guards shouted. No dogs barked. Everything was silent, disciplined, as if sound itself knew the rules. The carriage crossed the grounds and stopped at the steps. Mara's legs wouldn't move at first. The king stepped out, then held his hand toward her. It wasn't gentle, but it wasn't rough either. It was the way you offer help to someone crossing ice, firm, necessary. Mara took it. His skin was cold, not chilled, cold like winter water. It sent a jolt up her arm. She fought the urge to pull away. Servants waited at the doorway, heads bowed. They didn't look human, not fully. Their movements were too quiet, their eyes too blank. One woman in gray reached for Mara's sleeve and Mara flinched. The woman paused, then bowed deeper. "Apologies, my lady," she whispered. "My lady." Mara almost laughed. The king didn't correct her. He let the words sit there, heavy and dangerous. Inside, the manor smelled of old books, polished stone, and something faintly metallic. Blood, her brain whispered, even though she told herself to shut up. The king walked ahead, and everyone moved around him like he was gravity. Mara kept close, unsure if she was protected by his shadow or trapped inside it. They led her through corridors that turned too often, halls that felt designed to confuse. Doors were carved with symbols, thorn crowns, crescent moons, an eye inside a circle. Every few steps, Mara felt a faint prickling on her skin, like invisible threads brushing her. Wards, she realized. Magic, if that word could be real. A maid guided her to a bathing room. The bath was already filled, steam rising. The maid laid out a simple dress, soft fabric, clean, plain, no lace, no fancy nonsense. Practical like a uniform. "Wash," the maid said. "Eat, sleep, speak to no one unless spoken to." Mara's eyes narrowed. "Why?" The maid's lips pressed tight. "Because sound travels in this house," she murmured, then hurried away like she'd said too much. Mara sank into the bath. The hot water made her skin sting where it was cracked. Dirt bled off her in gray swirls. For the first time in ages, she saw her own arms without grime. She looked younger than she felt, smaller. The bruises stood out like a map of violence. She scrubbed until her fingers went numb, but the feeling of being dirty didn't leave. It lived in her head. After the bath, food waited on a tray. Bread, broth, meat so tender it fell apart. Mara ate too fast, ashamed, then kept eating anyway because her body didn't care about pride. When she finished, a dull warmth spread through her belly and she almost cried. She hadn't felt full since she was a child. She tried the door, locked, not even a surprise. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the window. The glass looked thick. The curtains were heavy, no escape. She told herself it was fine. She told herself she was alive. Then she remembered the king's word, hiding. What was she being hidden from? On the way to her room, a servant girl slipped beside her and whispered without moving her lips, "Don't trust the silence. It listens." Then the girl vanished through a side door as if she'd never been there. Mara tried to ask her name, but the corridor swallowed the question. In the dining hall, a single plate waited, steaming, yet no one sat with her. When she lifted the lid, the smell hit her hard. Iron-rich broth, rare meat, bread warm as fresh gossip. Her stomach twisted with hunger she hadn't earned. She ate anyway because survival didn't ask permission. Later, she found the window latches sealed with wax stamped with the same crown-eye crest. No fresh air, no escape, just choices that looked like choices until you touched them. She pressed her palm to the glass and felt a faint hum like a sleeping bee. Wards again. Protection, yes, but also a warning. This house did not keep people in by chains. It kept them in by rules that felt reasonable until you realized you could not break them. At dusk, the king returned, silent as a thought. Mara sat on the bed, hands folded in her lap out of habit. He stood near the fireplace without warming himself. The flames didn't reflect in his eyes. "Am I your prisoner?" Mara asked. He didn't answer right away. He walked to the door and locked it from the outside with a sound like metal teeth biting. Then he looked at her. "No," he said. "You are my risk." Mara's throat tightened. "I don't understand," she whispered. The king's gaze moved over her face like he was reading the parts she tried to hide. "You were made invisible," he said. "If I lift you into light too soon, you die." Mara's mouth opened, then shut. A sharp anger rose, but it had nowhere to land. "So you let it happen," she accused. "All those years." The king didn't flinch. "Yes," he said, "and I hated it." That shouldn't have sounded honest. It did. Mara's eyes burned. "Then why choose me at all?" The king's voice dropped even lower. "Because they already chose you," he said. "I am simply arriving first." He turned to leave, then paused like he was forcing himself to give her something. "You will be protected here," he said. "But you will not get every answer. Not yet." Mara stood. "If I'm protected, why do I feel like I've been buried?" The king's eyes met hers. For the first time, his calm looked like strain. "Because protection often looks like abandonment," he said, "and mercy often looks like cruelty." Then he was gone, leaving the air colder than before. That night, Mara sat in the dark, listening to the manor breathe. Somewhere far away, a door clicked. Somewhere closer, footsteps stopped outside her room and stayed still, like someone was standing guard or someone was listening. Mara pressed her hand to her shoulder where Alira's nails had once torn skin. The spot tingled. Warm. Wrong. She pushed her sleeve aside and froze. A fresh mark sat there, raised and dark, shaped like an eye inside a crown, as if it had been burned into her while she slept, and the moment her fingers touched it, the manor's wards screamed like they recognized her. Under the manor, the air felt older, not dusty, not stale, ancient, like it had been waiting. Mara followed the faint pull in her chest down a narrow staircase she wasn't supposed to know about. The servants never came here. The walls changed as she descended. Stone gave way to black metal etched with symbols that made her skin prickle. The mark on her shoulder burned softly now, not pain, more like a warning tap from inside her bones. Every step felt wrong and inevitable at the same time, like walking toward a memory she didn't remember living. At the bottom, a single door stood half open. No lock, no guard. That scared her more than chains ever had. Inside, the room was circular, carved directly into the rock beneath the manor. The air shimmered faintly, as if light itself hesitated to exist here. Shelves lined the walls, filled with old objects, rings, blades, scrolls sealed with dark wax, bones polished smooth by time. In the center stood a stone table marked with the same crown-eye sigil burned into her skin. As soon as Mara stepped closer, the mark flared hot. She gasped and grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. The stone felt warm under her palm, alive. "Don't touch that," a voice said calmly behind her. She spun. The vampire king stood in the doorway, expression unreadable, not angry, not surprised, like he had known this moment would come and was tired of waiting for it. "You followed the pull," he said. "I hoped you wouldn't yet." "You lied," Mara shot back, heart hammering. "You said I was safe." "I said safer," he corrected quietly. Words matter." She laughed, sharp and bitter. "You locked me in a cage and called it protection." The king stepped fully into the room. The wards reacted to him like loyal animals, softening, bending. "This room exists because of you," he said, "long before you were born." Mara stared, stopped talking in riddles. He exhaled slowly, as if choosing each word cost him something. "Your bloodline was erased from records centuries ago, not killed quickly, broken slowly, made small, made invisible. You weren't unlucky, Mara. You were managed." Her knees went weak. "Alira," she whispered. "Yes," he said. "Watcher, suppressor. She was assigned to you before you could walk." Mara's chest tightened until breathing hurt. Memories slammed together. Punishments too precise, hunger measured, isolation enforced like policy. "She hated me." "She did her job," the king replied, "too well." "You knew," Mara said, voice trembling. "You knew what she was doing. You watched." "I did," he said without flinching. The room felt too small. "Then you let it happen," she hissed. "You let her break me." He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the cold roll off him. "Because if I had stopped it earlier," he said, voice low and steady, "you would be dead." Mara shook her head. "That's a lie." "I wish it were," he said. "Your blood reacts to power. If you had been lifted, fed, protected openly as a child, every hunter, every noble house, every council seat would have felt you light up like a signal fire. Children like you do not get rescued. They get harvested." She stumbled back. "So suffering was the plan." "Survival was," he corrected. Mara looked down at her hands, scarred, small, trembling. "You turned my life into a hiding place." "Yes," he said, "the smallest thing is hardest to see." Tears burned, but she refused to cry. "You don't get to call that mercy." "I don't," he agreed. "I call it guilt." She looked up, shocked. "I made this mistake once before," the king continued. "A girl with your blood, different face, same mark. I intervened too soon, gave her comfort, safety, freedom. The council sensed her within days. They praised me for my compassion while signing her execution order. She died in my protection." Silence swallowed the room. "So you chose cruelty instead," Mara said. "I chose patience," he replied, "and I hate myself for it." Her anger twisted into something heavier. "What am I?" she asked. "Really?" The king gestured to the stone table. "You are an anchor, balance. Your existence alone shifts the power structure. That is why your blood was erased. That is why watchers like Alira exist." Mara laughed softly. "All that for someone who scrubbed floors on her knees." "Especially for her," he said. She turned away, pressing her palm to the table again. The stone hummed. Images flooded her mind. Shadows bowing, thrones cracking, hunters burning not from fire but from exposure. Not her power alone, her presence. "You didn't save me," Mara said quietly. "No," the king replied. "I hid you." She faced him, eyes hard. "I won't stay hidden forever." "I know," he said. Above them the manor shuddered. A ward snapped, sharp as breaking glass. The king's head lifted. "They've started searching deeper," he said. Mara's heart raced. "Then what happens to me?" He looked at her with something close to fear. "Then you choose," he said, "and your choice will end an era." They did not knock when they came. The manor felt it before anyone saw them. Stone groaned. Wards screamed like wounded animals. Mara woke with her heart racing, the mark on her shoulder blazing hot, not pain but urgency, like a hand shaking her awake from the inside. She sat up in the narrow bed that still felt borrowed, not hers, and for the first time since arriving she did not feel small. Fear was there, sharp and real, but underneath it was something steadier, heavier. Resolve. Somewhere deep below the manor, something answered her fear with calm. Outside her door, boots moved fast. Voices whispered orders, not servants, not guards, hunters. The kind that did not ask questions because they already believed they were right. Mara stepped into the corridor just as the vampire king appeared at the far end, coat thrown on, crown absent, his expression stripped of ceremony and reduced to pure focus. He did not tell her to go back. That scared her more than if he had shouted. "They are testing the outer rings," he said evenly. "Not attacking yet, looking for confirmation." "Confirmation of me," Mara replied. "Yes." She walked toward him before he could stop her. "You said I would choose." His jaw tightened. "I hoped you would have more time." "Time is a lie you tell yourself when you are afraid," she said. The words surprised even her, but they felt true the moment they left her mouth. "You taught me that without meaning to." The king studied her like a battlefield he had memorized but never wanted to cross. "If you step into the open now, they will stop hiding," he warned. "There will be no pretending, no laws to slow them. You will become the reason every blade is drawn." Mara nodded. "And if I stay hidden, they will keep hunting, quietly, forever." Silence stretched between them, thick and loaded. "You think I enjoy this?" the king asked suddenly, voice rougher than she had ever heard it. "Watching you pace a golden cage while the world sharpens its teeth. I built this place to delay a reckoning, not avoid it." Mara looked around at the corridor, the cold stone, the subtle runes humming behind the walls. "This place isn't protection anymore," she said. "It's rehearsal." A tremor ran through the manor. Somewhere below, something ancient shifted, awake now, no longer content to sleep through history. The hunters felt it too. Their whispers turned to raised voices, commands, panic hidden under discipline. The king closed his eyes briefly, as if listening to echoes only he could hear. "They brought noble witnesses," he said. "If they confirm you exist, the councils will move." "Good," Mara said. He opened his eyes sharply. "You don't understand what that means." "I understand enough," she replied. "You hid me so I could live, but living like this isn't life, it's suspension." The king stepped closer, towering, dangerous, controlled by habit more than intent. "If you walk out there," he said softly, "I cannot promise to stop the war." Mara met his gaze without flinching. "I'm not asking you to stop it." For a moment something ancient and raw broke through his control. Fear, not for himself, for her. "You were never meant to carry this," he said. "I already have," she answered, "every day." Another shock hit the manor. A ward failed completely this time. Cold air rushed in, carrying the scent of iron and old magic. The hunters were no longer searching. They were approaching. The king straightened. Decision settled over him like armor. "If you do this," he said, "you do it as what you are, not as prey, not as proof, as a force." Mara felt the mark on her shoulder flare, then spread, a web of warmth threading through her chest, her spine, her hands. The floor beneath her feet responded, stone humming in recognition. "Then teach me how," she said. He nodded once. No speeches, no hesitation. "There is a way to step into the open without bowing," he said, "but once you do, there is no hiding again." Mara smiled, small and fierce. "I've had enough of hiding." Above them, the main doors of the manor shuddered under the first true strike. The hunters had decided. The world was knocking. The doors did not fall with a crash. They opened slowly, deliberately, as if the manor itself was choosing to stop hiding. Cold night air poured in, carrying torch smoke, iron, and the sharp confidence of people who believed they were about to finish a long job. Mara stood at the top of the great stairs, barefoot on stone that had memorized her weight, her fear, her waiting. The hunters froze when they saw her, not because she looked powerful, but because she did not look like prey. She did not lower her eyes. She did not step back. She stood still, calm in a way that made trained killers uneasy. The vampire king remained one step behind her, not in front. That detail mattered more than any crown ever could. A noble voice cut through the hall, smooth and offended. "So the rumors were true," it said. "You hid her." The accusation was aimed at the king, but every eye kept drifting back to Mara, as if their instincts already knew where the real weight in the room sat. The king did not answer. He had learned centuries ago that power did not need to explain itself. Mara felt the pull inside her tighten, not like a command but like alignment. For the first time her breath did not feel borrowed. It felt chosen. She is unregistered, another voice snapped. Unbound. This existence violates, the words stopped when Mara lifted her hand. She did not summon light or fire, she did not scream. She simply let herself be seen. The mark spread, faint but undeniable, a quiet pressure that made the chandeliers tremble and the wards hum in harmony instead of alarm. The hunters shifted. Some stepped back without realizing they had done it. Old magic recognized older truth. I was hidden, Mara said, her voice carrying easily through the hall, because the world you built cannot handle balance without violence. She looked at the nobles now, not with hatred but with clarity. You erase what you cannot control, you break what you cannot own, and you call it order. A pause, heavy, deliberate. I survived because I was ignored. That era ends tonight. One of the nobles laughed, sharp and nervous. You think standing there changes anything? Mara turned her gaze fully to him, and the stone beneath his feet cracked, just a hairline fracture, but enough. Enough to make the message clear. I don't need to burn your world, she said softly. I only need to stop holding it together for you. The Vampire King finally moved then, stepping beside her, not above, not behind. This is where you decide, he told the assembly, voice like winter iron. You can continue hunting ghosts, or you can accept that the age of silent erasure is over. His eyes flicked to Mara just once, not command, permission. The nobles retreated, not in panic, in calculation. War would come later. Politics always dressed violence in patience first. The hunters withdrew, confused, unsettled, aware they had just witnessed something that would not stay contained in reports. When the doors closed again, the manor exhaled, not relief, acceptance. Mara did not sag with exhaustion. She did not cry. She walked down the stairs and stopped in the center of the hall where she had once been dragged, punished, ignored. You don't have to follow me, she said to the king quietly. He smiled, not triumphant, not relieved, honest. I never did, he replied. At dawn, Mara left the manor. No guards, no procession. Just her, walking into a world that would have to learn new rules. The king remained behind, turning to face councils, wars, and consequences he had delayed for centuries. He did not watch her go. He trusted her not to disappear again. She was not saved, she was not rescued, she was revealed. And that was far more dangerous. If you believe survival should never require silence, hit like and subscribe to Vampire Verse for stories where power is earned, not gifted. Was the Vampire King right to hide her instead of saving her? Yes or no? Let me know in the comments.